Have you ever looked at that prescription bottle and just kind of wondered about the number on it? Why that specific dose? Well, you'll be happy to know it's not just a guess. It's a fascinating science, and we are going to break it all down.
I mean, really think about it. When your doctor says to take 10 milligrams of something, why isn't it 5 or 20? What's the actual logic behind that number? It's a question that, believe it or not, gets right to the very heart of how medicine works inside our bodies.
You see, this right here is the core challenge of pretty much all of medicine. It's what we could call the dosing dilemma. If you take too little of a drug, well, nothing happens, no effect. But if you take too much, it can become toxic. The entire goal is to find that perfect, razor-thin, sweet spot right in the middle.
So to find that sweet spot, we first have to get a handle on what our body does with the drug after we take it. And it really all boils down to two main things: how the body spreads the drug out, and then how it cleans it all out. Okay, so this first concept is called volume of distribution. Now, the most important word here is apparent. This is not a literal physical volume. It's more of a theoretical space, a calculation that tells us if a drug would rather hang out in our bloodstream or if it's going to spread out into other places, like our fat or muscle tissues.
So let's make it simple. A drug with a low volume of distribution, it's kind of like adding a drop of food coloring to a small bowl of water. It stays really concentrated right there in that one little area, which in this case is our blood. It doesn't really wander off into the rest of the body.
But on the flip side, a drug with a high volume of distribution is like putting that same drop of dye into a massive swimming pool. The concentration in the water, our blood, is going to be super low, right? Because the drug is spread out everywhere. In fact, some drugs, like chloroquine, have an apparent volume of over 13,000 liters. That's way, way bigger than an entire human body. Wild, huh?
So if volume of distribution is all about spreading out, then clearance is all about cleaning up. It's basically the measure of how good your body, and we're talking mainly your liver and kidneys here, is at getting that drug out of your system.
So a drug with low clearance, you can picture it like a beaker of water with a tiny little drain at the bottom. The drug is getting eliminated, but it's happening very, very slowly. So it sticks around in your body for a lot longer.
And you can probably guess what's next. High clearance is the total opposite. It's that same beaker, but now it has a big, wide open drain. The body just flushes that drug out super quickly and efficiently.
Okay, so how do these two big ideas, spreading out and cleaning up, actually connect? Well, when you combine how widely a drug spreads out, its volume of distribution, with how fast it gets cleaned up, its clearance, you get something incredibly useful. You can figure out how long the drug is actually going to last in the body.
And this is what we call a drug's half-life. It's simply the time it takes for your body to get rid of half, 50% of the drug. So you can see how a drug that spreads out really wide but gets cleared really slowly is going to have a super long half-life. And one that stays in the blood and gets cleared out fast, a very short one. It all makes sense.
Let's make this real. Say a drug has a half-life of 2 hours. You start with 100 milligrams. After 2 hours, boom, you've got 50 milligrams left. After another 2 hours, you've got half of that, which is 25 milligrams. And it just keeps going like that. It's a totally predictable pattern.
But here's the million-dollar question for any medicine you have to take over and over. What happens when you take your next pill before that first dose is totally gone? Well, the drug starts to build up in your system. This is called accumulation, and it's absolutely crucial.
And what's really amazing is just how predictable this accumulation is. With every single dose you take, the drug concentration climbs. After one half-life, you're at about 50% of the final level you're going to reach. After 2, you're at 75%. This keeps happening until you hit something called a steady state. That's the point where the amount of drug you're taking in perfectly matches the amount your body is clearing out.
So this brings us to a really handy rule of thumb. It takes about 4 half-lives for a drug to build up to over 90% of its final steady concentration. This is the reason why when you start a new medication, it often takes several days or sometimes even weeks before you really start to feel its full, consistent effect. It's not magic, it's math.
All right, but there's another major piece to this whole puzzle. Turns out not all of the drug you swallow in a pill actually gets into your main bloodstream. It has to survive a pretty major detour first. And this helps explain a really common question. Why can some drugs be taken as a simple pill, while others have to be injected or maybe dissolved under your tongue? A huge reason for this is they have to survive what's called the first-pass effect, or as I like to call it, the first-pass gauntlet. Okay, so follow the journey. When you swallow a pill, it gets absorbed from your gut into this special blood vessel called the portal vein. And guess where that vein goes? It's a direct shuttle straight to your liver. Now, the liver acts like this hyper-efficient processing plant, and it immediately metabolizes or gets rid of a big chunk of that drug before it even has a chance to get to the rest of your body.
Morphine is the perfect example of this. When you take it as a pill, the liver is so good at its job that it wipes out about 2/3 of the dose on this first pass. That means only about 33% of the drug you swallowed actually becomes available to do its job in your body. And that percentage, by the way, has a name. It's called a drug's bioavailability.
Okay, let's take a quick breath. We've covered a lot of ground here. How drugs spread out, how they get cleaned up, their half-life, that tricky first pass effect. So how do we pull all of this together to actually hit that therapeutic sweet spot we talked about way back at the beginning? Well, this is where it all comes together so beautifully. Clinicians, doctors, pharmacists, they use these exact principles we've been talking about. Volume of distribution, clearance, half-life, and bioavailability. These are the tools they use to engineer a dose that's both safe and effective for you.
And they do it using something called the target concentration strategy. First, they pick a target concentration of the drug in your blood that they know works. Then, they predict what your volume of distribution and clearance are likely to be based on population data, but adjusted for things like your weight or how well your kidneys work. From that, they calculate an initial dose. But, and this part is so important, they don't just stop there. They measure the actual drug levels in you and then tweak and adjust the dose until it is dialed in perfectly for you. You see, this whole process is built on one of the most fundamental ideas in pharmacology. It's that the concentration of a drug is the crucial link between two giant concepts. Pharmacokinetics, that's all the stuff we just talked about, what your body does to the drug, and pharmacodynamics, which is what the drug actually does to your body. The concentration is the bridge between them.
So the next time you look at a prescription, you'll know that number isn't random at all. It's the result of a really careful calculation designed to navigate your body's unique way of spreading things out and cleaning them up, all just to land perfectly in that therapeutic sweet spot. It kind of makes you see that little pill in a whole new light, doesn't it?